At a lavish wedding filled with 300 guests, flashing cameras, and polished smiles, a pregnant woman stood only a few feet from the man who had destroyed her life. He had abandoned her, erased her from his future, and replaced her as though she had never mattered. But that still was not enough for him. In front of the entire room, he grabbed her dress and ripped it, certain that public humiliation would finally crush her. Instead, she straightened her back, looked him in the eye, and made one calm move that turned the room against him completely. What did she reveal that made the celebration go dead silent? The wedding invitation had not been addressed to Nia. She had not been asked to come, had not been expected to show up, and had spent the better part of 3 days convincing herself she would not. She had a list of reasons, all of them sensible. She was 6 months pregnant. She owned exactly one dress that still fit over her stomach. She had $43 in her checking account and a half-eaten box of crackers on her kitchen counter. None of those things belonged anywhere near a ballroom filled with chandeliers and open bars and people who had never once had to choose between a copay and a full tank of gas. And yet, on a Thursday evening in late October, Nia stood in front of her bathroom mirror, smoothing the front of a navy-wrap dress and telling herself she was only going to look. The envelope sat on the kitchen table where she had left it for 3 days. It had arrived with no return address, no name on the outside, just her name written in handwriting she almost did not recognize until she did. The moment she placed it, her hands went still. Marcus, Darius's former financial assistant, let go without explanation 8 months ago, 3 weeks after Nia had filed the first round of divorce paperwork. The timing had seemed like coincidence then. It did not seem like coincidence anymore. Inside the envelope were 4 pages of financial documents. Nia was not an accountant, but she had worked 2 years in a billing department before she met Darius, and she knew enough to understand what she was reading. Asset transfers dated 14 months ago, 8 months before Darius had told her he wanted a divorce, and 6 months before he filed. A third-party LLC registered in Delaware, with Darius listed as a silent partner under a name she almost missed on the second page. Income figures submitted to the court that did not match the figures on the documents in her hand. And a child. Nowhere in the 4 pages of the divorce agreement, not one line, not one clause, was there any reference to the child she was carrying, a child he had known about when he signed his name. At the bottom of the last page, a handwritten note on a torn strip of paper, "You deserve to know the truth, M." She had read it 4 times. Then she folded everything back into the envelope and put it in the kitchen drawer next to the takeout menus. She made herself a cup of tea she did not drink. She sat on the couch for a long time looking at nothing in particular. Then she took the envelope out of the drawer and put it in her purse. Darius Carter understood, at a cellular level, that perception was the only currency that never depreciated. He had built his reputation the same way he built his investment portfolio, carefully, patiently, with a precise eye for what looked good and a ruthless instinct for cutting whatever did not. By 35, he sat on 2 corporate boards, appeared twice yearly in local business press, and had cultivated the specific kind of public warmth that made people trust him with their money. The wedding was the capstone. He was marrying Serena Whitfield, 28, poised, the only daughter of Gerald Whitfield, whose commercial real estate holdings made Darius's portfolio look like a practice run. The match was, by every visible measure, an elevation, a new chapter, proof, offered in flowers and catering and a guest list of 300, that Darius Carter had arrived at exactly the life he deserved. The old chapter, the apartment in Midtown, the marriage that had quietly dissolved, the woman he had stopped mentioning had been closed and filed away. He did not think about Nia often. When he did, it was with the mild, practiced irritation of a man who has handled an unpleasant situation efficiently and does not care to revisit it. He had not expected her to be a problem. Marcus had added Nia's name to the auxiliary staff list at 11 o'clock the night before the wedding, slipping it into the event coordinator's digital roster under logistics support, internal. He had spent 3 months on short contracts with the events firm after Darius terminated him, and he knew the venue, the staff rotation, and exactly which entrance bypassed the formal guest check-in. He had sent the envelope because he had carried those documents for 8 months and could not carry them anymore. He was not a brave man by nature, but he was a precise one, and precision had pointed him in only one direction. He met Nia at the side entrance at 6:45 and pressed a laminated badge into her hand. "Raymond Holt is here," he said, his voice low, eyes forward. "Table 4, VIP section, left of the stage. He has been asking questions about the Meridian deal for 6 weeks, the same deal where the asset figures do not line up. He does not know exactly what he is looking for yet, but if he sees those documents, he will." "Marcus," Nia said. Her voice was steadier than she felt. "Why are you doing this?" He was quiet for a moment. "Because I processed those transfers. I flagged them internally and was told to unflag them, and then I was let go." He paused. "And because you are 6 months pregnant," and he wrote a settlement that pretends that is not happening. Nia looked at the badge in her hand. "Go in through the kitchen corridor," Marcus said. "Stay near the back. You do not have to do anything tonight. I just needed you to have the choice." She clipped the badge to her purse strap and walked through the door. The ballroom was everything she had expected and nothing she was prepared for. 12-foot ceilings draped in ivory fabric, centerpieces taller than she was, a string quartet playing something she did not know, but that sounded expensive. The kind of light that made everyone look a little more beautiful, a little more certain of their place in the world. 300 guests in formal wear, holding champagne, laughing the way people laugh when they are comfortable and have never had reason not to be. Nia stood at the edge of the room and breathed. She had known this world when she was inside it. She had attended dinners like this, worn dresses that did not come from a clearance rack. That version of herself felt very far away, not like a previous chapter, but like a story someone else had told her about a woman she used to know. She found a position near the back pillar, close to the kitchen corridor exit, and stayed still. She watched the room the way she had learned to watch things in the past year, carefully, without letting herself be seen watching. That was when she noticed him. Table 4, left of the stage. An older man, mid-60s, silver-haired, in a charcoal suit that had clearly been made for him. He was not laughing or performing. He was watching the room the same way she was, with the quiet attention of someone taking inventory. Raymond Holt. His eyes moved across the floor and, for just a moment, landed on her. He held her gaze for exactly 1 second, long enough for her to understand that he knew who she was, and then looked toward the stage. Nia's hand moved, without her deciding it, to her purse. She had told herself she was only coming to look, to confirm, to decide. Standing there, with the music and the laughter and the light arranged to make everything look the way it was supposed to be, she made her decision, not to destroy anything, not to take anything back, just to stop letting someone else write the ending. The ceremony lasted 40 minutes. Nia stayed near the back pillar and kept her eyes on the room rather than the altar. She watched the guests the way they smiled at the right moments, tilted their heads at the vows, dabbed carefully at the corners of their eyes with folded napkins. A choreographed tenderness. Everyone playing their role in a story written long before tonight. She did look, once, at Serena. The bride was genuinely beautiful, not in the constructed way that wealth sometimes produced, but with a stillness that seemed to come from somewhere real. She stood at the altar with her hands wrapped around Darius's and her eyes on his face, looking, for all the world, like a woman who believed completely in the man in front of her. Nia looked away. She knew that expression. She had worn it herself for 3 years, in rooms not unlike this one. She felt no contempt for Serena, only the dull, tired ache of recognizing oneself in someone who does not yet know what she knows. The reception began at 8. The string quartet gave way to a live band. The lighting shifted to something warmer, and 300 guests moved from their rows into clusters. Nia accepted a glass of water from a passing server and repositioned herself near the east wall, closer to the main floor, but still peripheral. She had been inside for nearly 2 hours. The familiar heaviness of late pregnancy had settled into her lower back, but she stayed on her feet. Sitting down in this room felt like concession. Marcus appeared briefly at her elbow. "Holt has been talking to 2 people at his table for the last 20 minutes, he said, eyes forward. He pulled something up on his phone and showed them. He has been watching the room ever since. Has Darius seen me? A beat. Not yet. She nodded. Marcus moved away. Serena found her first. It was not planned. Nia could tell immediately from how it happened. Serena stepping away from her bridesmaids, turning toward the restrooms, and stopping. Her eyes found Nia's face the way eyes find something unexpected, but somehow already recognized. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Serena said, quietly, "You're Nia." Not a question. Nia held her gaze. Yes. Something moved across Serena's face, not anger, not panic, but the expression of someone who has just had a suspicion confirmed that they had spent considerable energy hoping would not be. She glanced toward the main floor, then back. "He told me you were unstable," Serena said, "that you had been harassing him, that there was a protective order." A pause. "There is not one, is there?" "No," Nia said, "there is not." Serena looked at her, at the dress, at the unmistakable curve of her stomach, at her face. Something shifted behind her eyes, not the unraveling of certainty, but the first quiet fracture of it. "I found your name in his phone 2 weeks ago," she said, almost to herself. "He said." She stopped, pressed her lips together. Then, like a door being carefully pulled shut, "I should get back." She walked away. Nia watched her go. Darius saw her at 8:47. She knew the exact moment because she had been tracking him at intervals across the room, not constantly, but often enough to know when the pressure was changing. He was at the bar, talking to 2 men in dark suits, holding a glass of scotch and doing what he did best, filling a room with the certainty of his own presence. Then his eyes moved across the floor and found her. The scotch glass stopped halfway to his mouth. Nia did not look away. She held his gaze with the same stillness she had been practicing for 2 hours and watched him process its surprise, then calculation, then fear dressed efficiently as anger. He excused himself from the 2 men in under 30 seconds. He crossed the room, performing ease. He did not feel the walk of a man handling a minor administrative matter. She could see the tension in his jaw from 10 feet away, and she knew that jaw. She had watched it tighten across 100 dinner tables, in arguments where being right mattered more to him than being honest. He stopped in front of her, close enough to keep their conversation invisible while using his height as pressure. "You need to leave," he said. His voice was low, pleasant on the surface, the way cold water looks calm before the current shows. "Right now, before this becomes something you cannot walk back from." Nia said nothing. "I do not know how you got in here, but I will have you removed. You are making yourself look desperate. Whatever you think you are doing, it is not going to work. I am just standing here, Darius." Something behind his eyes tightened. The absence of fear in her voice was not the response he had prepared for. He had prepared for anger, for tears, for the shaking hands and raised pitch of a woman unraveling. He had not prepared for stillness. He leaned slightly closer. "I am giving you a chance to walk out with your dignity intact." "I appreciate that," she said. "I will let you know if I need it." He held her gaze for 3 seconds. Then he straightened, arranged his expression back into something appropriate, and walked toward the center of the room. But he did not go back to the bar. He positioned himself where he could see her. And across the room, at table 4, Raymond Holt set his dessert fork down and did not pick it up again. The next 40 minutes were a slow escalation that most of the room did not notice. A nervous young server appeared at Nia's side to inform her, with genuine apology, that there had been a mix-up with the guest list and she would need to check in at the front desk. Nia smiled at him, said she would take care of it shortly, and did not move. A senior event coordinator in a headset came next, professional, polished, visibly uncomfortable. "Ma'am, I have been asked by the host to." "I understand," Nia said. "I will need about 20 minutes. If Mr. Carter would like to escalate this himself, he is welcome to." The coordinator looked at her for a moment, glanced briefly at her stomach, and walked away without another word. Marcus appeared one final time, just before 9:30. "He is not performing anymore. He is actually angry. You need to be ready." "I am ready." "Nia." He paused. "I can still get these documents to Holt's attorney. This does not have to happen here." "I know it does not have to," she said. "That is not why I am doing it." A moment of silence. "Okay," he said, and stepped back. She reached into her purse and closed her fingers around the envelope. Darius came back at 9:34. He came from her left, faster than before, and he was not pretending anymore. The smile was gone. The measured voice was gone. What remained was the version of him she had come to know in the last year of their marriage, stripped of performance, operating on the raw instinct of a man who needed control and had exhausted his patience for subtlety. He stopped directly in front of her. "This ends now. You are leaving." "No," she said. "I am not." He grabbed her dress, the shoulder of it, fabric bunching in his fist, and pulled. The sound of tearing cut through the nearest conversations like something sharp and irreversible. The music faltered, then stopped. The conversations died all at once, that particular silence that falls when a room understands, collectively, that something real is happening. Nia stumbled one step from the force of it, caught herself against the pillar, and straightened. The dress had torn from the shoulder seam down several inches. She was standing. She was still standing. She did not cry. She did not make a sound. For a few seconds, she did not move at all, long enough for 300 people to see clearly what had just happened, long enough for the room's silence to become something weighted and permanent. Her legs felt distant. Her pulse was loud in her ears. And then, beneath all of it, she felt her child move, not a kick, but a slow, deliberate shift, a small body rearranging itself, as if to say, "I am here. We are still here." She pressed one hand briefly to her side. Then she dropped it. She looked toward the stage. Nobody moved. 300 people frozen mid-gesture, mid-sentence, as though the room had decided to hold its breath and wait for her to tell it what came next. A woman near the cake had her hand raised halfway to her mouth. Two groomsmen sat with their chairs pushed back, neither standing nor sitting. The violinist still had her bow against the strings. Darius stood 2 feet behind Nia, his hand open at his side where the fabric had slipped through his fingers. For once in the years she had known him, he appeared to have no prepared response. Nia did not look at him. She straightened her back not as a performance of composure, but as the simple, physical act of a woman deciding not to fold, and she breathed, once, twice. She had spent the past year making herself smaller, quieter, less inconvenient. She had told herself that was dignity. She understood now that it had been disappearance, and she was finished disappearing. She walked toward the stage. The MC stood 6 feet away, microphone in hand, wearing the expression of a man whose entire professional training had not prepared him for this moment. When Nia stopped in front of him and extended her hand, he gave her the microphone without hesitation, without consultation, the way people give things when they understand on some wordless level that it is simply the right thing to do. No one moved to stop her. Darius had just torn the dress of a visibly pregnant woman in front of his entire guest list. There was no angle from which intervention would have looked anything other than what it was. She turned to face the room. "I am not going to take very long," she said. Her voice came through the speakers cleanly, no tremor, no performance, just the voice of a woman who had decided that what she was about to say was true, and that true things did not require decoration. "Most of you do not know me. My name is Nia. Until 14 months ago, I was Darius Carter's wife." A sound moved through the room, the collective exhale of 300 people recalibrating. She did not pause for it. "I am not here to ruin a wedding. I am here because 3 days ago, I received documents that several people in this room have a right to know exist, and because tonight, I was given a very clear reminder that staying silent is no longer something I am willing to do." She held the envelope at her side, then opened it. These documents show that 14 months ago, 8 months before Darius filed for divorce, he transferred a significant portion of his personal assets into a third-party LLC registered in Delaware. The transfer was structured to ensure those assets would not be subject to division in divorce proceedings. She held up the first page. The income figures he submitted to the court do not match his actual reported earnings during that same period. The room was completely silent. Not the silence of discomfort, the silence of attention. And this, she raised the final page, is the divorce agreement he signed 7 months ago. I would ask anyone here to find, anywhere, in these 4 pages, a single reference to the child I am carrying, a child he knew about when he signed his name. She set the pages on the nearest table. Raymond Holt stood up. He rose without drama, the movement of a man who has made a decision, straightened his jacket, and reached into his breast pocket for his phone. The 2 people beside him exchanged a look. One of them reached for their own phone a moment later. Nia noticed, but kept her eyes on Serena. The bride had not moved from her position near the head table. She stood with both hands at her sides, her bouquet somewhere behind her on the table, looking at Darius with an expression Nia recognized because she had worn it herself once in their kitchen on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon, holding a bank statement that did not add up, waiting for an explanation that would make it make sense. The explanation had come. It had been smooth and detailed and entirely convincing. Serena was not waiting for an explanation this time. Darius stepped forward. These documents are fabricated. She has been. Darius. Serena's voice was not loud, but the room was silent enough that everyone near her heard it. She was not shaking. She was not crying. Her voice carried the flat, exhausted finality of someone confirming what she had already, privately, begun to know. Stop. He turned to look at her. Just stop, she said again. He did not have an answer for that. Not because he lacked words, but because the particular quality of her stillness, the absence of doubt in it, had removed the surface he needed to push against. The room dissolved slowly, the way a formal occasion comes apart when its structure is removed not in explosion but in gradual, irreversible dissolution. The Whitfield family moved together toward the far corner in the quiet, closed formation of people who need to confer. A groomsman had his phone to his ear. The event coordinator was speaking rapidly into her headset, one hand pressed against her other ear. Darius stood at the center of it. For the years Nia had known him, he had understood how to occupy a room, how to make his presence feel like the room's natural center of gravity. Standing there now, in the silence of everything he had built coming apart around him, he looked like what he had always been underneath the architecture, a man who had mistaken control for strength and was only now discovering the difference. He looked at Nia once more. She thought he might attempt one final reframe, but whatever he found in her expression was apparently not worth the effort. He looked away. Near the kitchen corridor entrance, Marcus stood watching. When Nia's eyes found his, he crossed to the table where she had left the documents, picked up the envelope, and held it. She gave him a small nod. He would know what to do with it. At table 4, Raymond Holt was already moving toward Marcus, phone still in hand. Nia walked to Serena. She had not planned it. She had not rehearsed it or decided it on the drive over. But she found herself crossing the length of the room through the silent clusters of guests who made space for her without being asked. Not in deference, but in the instinctive way people step aside for something they can feel the weight of, until she stood in front of the woman who had been, 3 hours ago, someone's bride. Serena looked at her. Something in her face was opening, not collapsing, but opening, the way things open when the pressure holding them closed has finally been removed. Her eyes were bright but steady, Nia said, low enough for only the two of them. I did not come here for him. I want you to know that. Serena held her gaze. A long moment passed, long enough for something unspoken to move between them, something that did not require a name. Then she exhaled, slowly, and some of the held tension left her shoulders. I know, she said. Then, barely above a whisper, thank you. Nia held her gaze one moment longer. Then she turned and walked to the exit. The night air met her at the top of the entrance steps, cool, carrying the faint smell of rain that had fallen earlier and left the pavement dark and quiet. She walked down the steps carefully, one hand on the railing, and stood at the bottom. Behind her, through the glass doors, she could hear the ballroom beginning to reassemble itself into noise, voices rising, the sound of a formal event becoming something else entirely. She did not look back. She pulled out her phone and requested a car. While she waited, the city moved through its ordinary night around her, indifferent, continuous, full of other lives unfolding in other lit windows, and she stood at the curb and let herself be still for the first time all evening. The baby moved. A slow, rolling shift, not a kick, but something more like a stretch, an adjustment. A small body settling into itself with the unhurried ease of something that belongs exactly where it is. I know, she thought. We are going home. The car arrived. She opened the door, settled into the back seat, and let the door close behind her. The driver asked if she was all right. Yes, she said. She meant it. She watched the lit entrance of the venue diminish in the side mirror, growing smaller as the car moved, until the road curved and it disappeared. She made tea when she got home. She sat on the couch in the quiet of the apartment, and for the first time in a long time she did not feel the need for anyone to confirm that she had done the right thing. She knew. Whatever came next, the attorneys, the process, the long and difficult road ahead, she would face it. But her child would not grow up in a story defined by erasure. That was what she had gone there for. That was what she had come back with. She thought about tomorrow, about the appointment she had scheduled for the following morning, about the name she had been turning over in her mind for 3 weeks, holding it up from different angles to see if it was strong enough. It was. Outside, the city continued its ordinary night. Inside the small apartment, in the quiet, a woman rested, and beside her, making itself known with the patient, certain rhythm of something moving toward the world, a new life settled, and waited, and was not afraid.